the session. Ashok, are you in a position to read How to Love
Yeah, I
God?
can see it. How to love God? Is that the one?
Yes, please go ahead. Jai Baba.
Uh, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. How to love God? To love God in the most practical way is to love our fellow beings. If we feel for others in the same way as we feel for our own dear ones, we love God. If instead of seeing faults in others, we look within ourselves, we are loving God. If instead of robbing others to help ourselves, we rob ourselves to help others, we are loving God. If we suffer in the suffering of others and feel happy in the happiness of others, we are loving God. If instead of worrying over our own misfortunes, we think of ourselves more fortunate than many others, we are loving God. If we endure our lot with patience and contentment, accepting it as His will, we are loving God. If we understand and feel that the greatest act of devotion and worship to God is not to hurt or harm any of His beings, we are loving God. To love God as He ought to be loved, we must live for God and die for God, knowing that the goal of all life is to love God and to find Him as our own self. By Meher Baba, Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. So we are launching into a new journey today, and it's best represented by this. So we are actually going to start Wayfarers. So if you see on the screen, there's a very high resolution map of all the visits. So Baba said musts are only in Wayfarers was a book about musts, obviously, and Baba said musts are only in this region, in the subcontinent, and so this is a labor of love by uh, William Donkins, where he has actually recorded all the places where Baba has been for must hunting, as it used to be called among the monthly. And there's a lot of detailed notes here. And there's this is the actual list of places he's been to. And this is we'll get to it as we read the book. So the way the book is structured is there's 1 second. So there are supplements which tell you. Let's go to a supplement page. Yeah, so this is an example for a reference. So this is the place, Polavaram. Then there is the map reference, F9. So if you go to F9, you'll actually find Polavaram. Let's go to F9. F, and you go to 9. Here it is. There it is, Polavaram, close to the coast, the famous Kakinada coast. So that's where Polavaram is. And then Baba says he has dates. Okay, actually, it's continuing from here. So 1943 March is where Bhikkhu Baba, Bhikkhu Bhagwan, a great Majzoob-like must of the whatever. So it's just to give you an idea of how well this book is structured. And look at this. If you see on the left, the supplement runs into pages, right? Supplement runs into hundreds of pages. So I think it's a very detailed account, a detailed account of what Baba was trying to do with these masks. And I think in this process, at least for me personally, I'll have a greater understanding, I hope, and so shall all of us, on what Baba was actually doing as part of his universal work in this aspect specifically, and what role these masks had. And to see it with a view of a certified medical doctor as the author of this account is also another added bonus, which I'm sure was one of the reasons for Mamaji being excited about this and wanting to pick this book up for quite some time. Following this, we'll do the detailed discourses, and the reasons for that are multiple. One, Kama is traveling; he's on the road, and I'd like him to be at least in the US or in India. If he's in the US, he can participate because the times are friendly. Europe is impossible. Second, Sunil is traveling. I think Sunil and Namita are traveling this towards the end of the month. So this is more a lighter read, but a long one. But I hope to finish this maybe in the next couple of months, and then we get back to a detailed read of discourse. So that's a general update before we start. I see Cyril jump devices to get a closer look at the map, I think. Yeah, Cyril. Anyway, any thoughts, comments, excitement before we start?
We have a.
Yeah.
Are we able
Balaji,
to check on the book? Is it on the Trello or color on the side?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'll put this on Trello. Thank you. But the whole book is available on Teams. I'll send the link as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it may
It
need.
is available on the trust website also.
Yes.
It's
I
available
know.
on the Trust website, but then it's 6 parts, so it's difficult and unwieldy. I've combined it to a single file. I've just kept the map consciously outside because the map is very, very high resolution. This file alone is about 12, 15 MB. Just look at this. I'm able to zoom to this level, right? It's a 1-page map. So it's better to keep the map separate and use it as a reference as required. Anyway, you can look at the Trust versions or you can look at the versions on Teams. But I think it's a lighter read, so reference may be less important, but reading it together, I'm sure will be fun.
Yes.
Ashok, you were saying something.
Yeah, the map is very interesting. And you said this will take months to complete this book.
Yes. So if you look at the pages, it's 548.
Okay.
That's including the supplement and including it. So it's quite a long read. But I think that it's a light read. So we will obviously, as always, stop for discussions and so on. But I'm guessing we should be able to do tens of pages every session.
Correct. And just taking a suggestion which I normally use, I think printing out that one page and keeping it at the place where we read in your homes might be interesting, because then you can have a quick reference, of course, on the Teams as well, and also a hard copy of the map might help.
Yeah. So feel free to do what you'd want. I'd also send you the link of the map. I'm obsessively electronic over paper.
Yes.
I personally
Correct.
prefer that. So, but feel free to kill some trees, no problem.
No, I'm still a hybrid person. So of course I may not print it, but I think that can be a good reference.
Sure. I mean, it's also depends on the devices, right? If you have smaller phones and or no iPad, then it makes sense to have paper.
No, I'm doing this
I jump
on the
from
iPhone.
device to device and prefer electronic. Yeah.
No, I'm doing it on the iPhone, so iPhone is a little challenging. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Agree.
that's the problem with us, to jump from device to device or page
Sorry,
to page
Mama.
on the system is a bit difficult for us. Okay.
I know. I understand. So, okay. So let's get started then. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And as always, we'll keep rotating the reading. Maybe I'll start for a bit and then we'll continue. The Wayfarers, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. An account of the work of Meher Baba with the God-intoxicated and also with the advanced souls, sadhus, and the poor. Fully illustrated with many photographs and maps. With a foreword by Meher Baba. We have the logo, and this is a 1948 publication we see. Start with a quick. Yeah, there's quite a few black and white photographs, wonderful photographs, some of which you might have seen in various places. So there is a dedication in Gujarati. O Meher Baba, our spiritual guide, we lay our heads at thy feet because thy gracious divine self hath fully discovered the essence of God. Is that a
This
famous
is the
saying
this is the poem. This is the lines from the prayer.
from the Gujarati prayer? I don't know.
No?
I'm asking.
धरिए सर
No.
यथा मुर्शद मेहर बाबा चरण पर तुझ न धरिए सर.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bujave, from Bujave.
Yes, Bujave prayer.
But then O Meher Baba, spiritual guide, doesn't come in that. Right?
You
I
are
think the
saying na
last
Murshad
line.
Meher Baba. Aya Murshad Meher Baba.
Murshad,
Oh.
Aya Murshad.
Yeah.
Murshad is
Meher
spiritual
Baba.
guide. Spiritual
Yeah,
guide.
yeah,
Murshid.
yeah.
Murshid.
Yeah.
Murshad.
चरण पर तुझ न धरिए सर.
Charan par.
खुदा ना जात थी वाकिफ कहीं
Jat.
बैठो मेहर बातो. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Awesome. Awesome. Good catch. Thank you. Yeah. So let's get to the preface. For the commerce of thought and feeling, mankind has evolved many media of exchange. If we wish to impart an idea or a thought to another, we are accustomed to make use of gesture, speech, or writing. And should we wish to impart some complex emotional state, we may make use, if we are sufficiently gifted, of one or other or of the arts of music, painting, sculpture, poetry, or the drama. Thus, in a host of obvious but external ways, we share the experiences of others and enable others to share ours. This volume, however, attempts to describe spiritual contacts between Meher Baba, the perfect master, and those who are spiritually advanced. And in these contacts, almost no use is made of conventional channels of communication, for Meher Baba has been silent since 1925. It is true that this inner communion has certain outer features, for Meher Baba serves these God-intoxicated souls with his own hands, and he sits with them in seclusion, but he does not speak to them. The essential contact is silent. There are two main aims to this book. The foreword and chapter 1 explain briefly what is meant by a God-intoxicated soul, and explain to a certain extent also why such souls behave as they do. The rest of the book, including the supplement, contains the story of Meher Baba's silent contacts with God-intoxicated souls, with advanced souls of all types, and with the mad and the poor. It has been assumed that this book will be read mostly by those who know who Meher Baba is and what his teachings are. It is nevertheless advisable to point out that the theory and practice described in this narrative become significant only when considered in the fuller context of Meher Baba's life and work. The new reader should therefore study other works about Meher Baba before he passes judgment on the contents of the Wayfarer. There are, of course, many relevant problems that are left untouched by the explanatory pages at the beginning of the book. Many of these deliberate omissions can be filled by a study of the various volumes of the discourses of Meher Baba, and many more will be filled by a volume on the entire divine theme on which Dr. Abdul Ghani Munsif is now working under the direct guidance of Meher Baba. A few words are perhaps needed to explain why a Western disciple of Meher Baba, who has himself played an insignificant part in this particular work of the Master, should have set out to write this book. In the autumn of 1946, it has occurred to me that there was no complete and consecutive account of Meher Baba's work with Masts and other advanced souls, and that if the details of this phase of his work were not soon gathered together, they might eventually be in a great measure lost. These thoughts recurred several times so that I felt impelled at last to give expression to them. In December 1946, in Mahabaleshwar, my remarks rebounded upon me, for one day Meher Baba gave me the task of making a record of this work of his, and so the book began. In order that the value of the mass of detail contained in this volume may be enhanced, the names of those who have contributed information of any kind and who have helped me in so many ways must be acknowledged. Meher Baba's activities cover a vast field, and his many disciples serve him in a host of different ways. Amongst the large group of those intimate disciples who serve Meher Baba in every sphere of his great work for the world, and among the wide circle of his devotees, there are some who have been eyewitnesses of one aspect or another of the episodes with which this book deals. According to opportunity, I have gathered information from a certain number of these disciples and devotees, and their help has been quite indispensable in the writing of this book. Paidul, R.B. Irani, Kaka, A.S. Baria, and Erich, E.B. Jesawala have contributed by far the greatest number of detailed eyewitness accounts, and without the patient cooperation of these three, this book could have never been written. In addition, so many other intimate disciples of Baba and so many of his devotees have helped me to fill gaps here and there that it is difficult to pay tribute to one more than to another. At the close of this preface, therefore, are the names of all who have given me help or information, and these names have been placed in alphabetical order with symbols indicating the type of assistance they have so generously rendered. Thanks are also due to Baba's sister Mani, who typed the entire script of this book. Above all, I feel it a privilege to be able to say that Meher Baba has checked the typescript of this book, the supplement, and the additional supplement. As a result of this careful work on his part, many errors have been corrected and many details of interest added both to the main text and to the supplements. So, the word mast, which means one who is intoxicated with divine love, is pronounced to rhyme with the English word trust. So, must trust. My aim has been to give a faithful and objective account of this great work of Meher Baba, and I know that there is too much attention paid to the outer and therefore to the least important characteristics of many musts and saints. Despite this misleading emphasis on material features, an attempt has been made to stress that the real side is the spiritual one, and that fundamentally, this is the only thing that matters. There is one word of warning, and this is that in those instances where Meher Baba has not revealed all that one would like to know about some aspect of his work or about the qualities of some great must or saint, the author's speculations have here and there crept into the substance of the text. I have, however, generally tried to make clear the distinctions between the statements of Meher Baba and any of my personal ideas. This is often done by such expressions as Baba says, Baba has told us, and so forth, when the matter of the text records a statement of Meher Baba, and by such expressions as one felt, one suspects for purely personal expressions of opinion. I believe that the supplement may seem too large and be criticized as containing many details that are apparently unimportant. In defense, therefore, I feel it best to state my reasons for including so much material. The first of these is that I believe that Meher Baba is so great a being that even the minor details of his life and work are important. And the second, that the subject of God-intoxicated souls has been so little dealt with in print that even trivial data may help to add something to the sum of human knowledge about it. In order to add to the value of this book as a record of Meher Baba's work, I have put in as many illustrations as possible, and it is realized that many of these illustrations are bad from a technical point of view. The critic should therefore understand that every photograph has been taken under conditions imposed by the musts themselves, and not under those that a photographer would have chosen. Finally, in a work of this kind, which has had to draw so much upon the memory of things past, errors of one kind or another are inevitable, and I hope that those who discern them will be merciful. For help and information freely given, acknowledgements are due to the following, whose names are given in alphabetical order. So there's a code for each of the help: G, R, G for general, general help, R for proofreading, T for typing, I for information, P for photographs, and T for typing. Oh, he's got T for typing twice. Okay. There's quite a few names. My grateful thanks are due to Jean Adriel for permission to make use of certain material from Avatar, to many authors in the Meher Baba Journal, whose writings have been valuable in the writing of this book, and to Adi K. Irani for giving me access to the diaries of the late F.H. Dada Chanji. The translation of the Persian poem on page 36 is reprinted from selected poems from the Divani Shamsi Tabriz by Reynold A. Nicholson, M.A., published by the Cambridge University Press. For permission to reprint this translation, grateful thanks are due to the Cambridge University Press. Okay, foreword, part 1 by Meher Baba, the difference between ordinary madness and must states. Do you want to switch reading? Or yeah, why don't we do that? Who wants to go first? Any volunteers?
I will try for a
Okay, please go ahead, Mama.
Okay. Can
Forward,
you slightly shrink the page?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The average man dresses more or less like others, and he sits, talks, and walks like others. The attention that he pays to his bodily needs, the habits that he builds up for self-expression, and reactions that he shows to his fellow beings may, no doubt, have some few differentiating characteristics and peculiarities. But the variations of these characteristics and peculiarities have definite limits. They do not considerably deviate from ordinary ways. They change within the range of normality. Thus, owing to his conformity with the average pattern of responses and actions, the ordinary man of the world does not arouse any special interest. He is taken for granted and does not seem to need any explanation. Explanation is necessary when the variations of his responses and actions transgress the limits of normal range. The average man of the world is tied to the world and is molded by the ways of the world. He reacts to the world according to the prompting of inclinations developed as a result of the diverse impacts that the world has on his mind. His main basis of reaction is the mind, as shaped by the imprints of the bipolar experience of the opposites, success and failure, joy and suffering. The responses and reactions given by the mind of the ordinary man of the world are not determined by true values or by a real understanding of life. They are determined by the chaotic and conflicting tendencies built out of experiences that have neither been properly assimilated nor understood. Though the outer behavior of the ordinary man is in conformity with the average pattern of references and reactions, his, his inner life is subject to severe mental conflicts and suffering and to a never renewing sense of frustration. Outwardly, the average man may seem to have equanimity, but his equanimity is only apparent, not real. When he gets profoundly dissatisfied with his uncritically accepted pattern of actions, he struggles to achieve a standpoint which would be unfailing under all types of circumstances and which would ensure for him unbroken peace and fulfillment. Purely intellectual understanding of the world and its experience fails to provide him with such an unfailing standpoint. He therefore re-examines his previous assumptions and ways and makes intelligent and new experiments in his own life in order that he may discover and obtain with his own being a reliable directive. Such new experimentation with life entails a severe and consciousness severance of consciousness from the average pattern that is current in the world. It implies the faith that consciousness would be able to discover and reach a directive standpoint within itself. This is the beginning of true search. Such a new experimentation with life entails a severance of consciousness from the average pattern that is current in the world. It implies the faith that consciousness would be able to discover and reach a directive standpoint within itself. This is the beginning of true search. Ordinarily, such a person carries a new experimentation with the help of others whom he considers more advanced than himself. In rare cases, he has the advantage of direction by a perfect master. In such cases, his deviations from the average pattern of life are not very considerable, and he adopts as a framework of his new experimentation some pattern of the life of an aspirant available from his observation or known to him through tradition. But if the experimentation proceeds without the help of available guidance and loses all moorings, the person may, in his own right and with his own understanding, take to unconventional pattern of life. The result is that the person often lands himself into confusing side tracks and bypaths, and sometimes into regressive channels of life. Once the average pattern of life is surrendered, it makes room for infinite varieties of self-created and provisional pattern of life and action. These patterns may deviate considerably from normality, and the ways of life that follow from such patterns may even seem to be insane to the extent to which they deviate from the average mode of life. But they do not necessarily mean real insanity or even retrogression on the path of the inner search. Such a person is often, in his own individual way, in earnest search of God or truth as the unfailing inward directive power. In and through his waywardness, there is a logic of his own, and all his idiosyncrasies and aberrations can be understood only if they are viewed in the light of the inner motive power. In the light of the inner motive power. Their true significance cannot be appreciated unless they are seen in relation to the objective of the animating and dynamic pattern that he has created for himself. The pattern he has selected may seem queer, out of the way, and verging on insanity, but but this happens because it is isolated from its inner context and is appraised mechanically and superficially by the outer conventional measures of normality. Very often, the inward aim of the dynamic patterns animating the lives of such apparently insane persons is God or truth as the internal directive power. And in spite of their outward waywardness, they are substantially advancing on the inner spiritual path. They are sincerely and wholeheartedly devoted to truth as it comes to them. They are divinely mad in search of eternal values. They have decided to take stakes in their desire to realize God. Such persons are not mad in the ordinary sense. They are desperately in love with God and known as Masts and are known as Masts. Masts are totally different from ordinary mad persons, although to the casual observer they may seem to be like each other. They are utterly dissimilar in their intrinsic nature and significance. Though both are far from perfection and need correctives and healing, there is a vast difference in the nature of their inner mental states and in the spiritual value of the results that are achieved by the application of correctives. These important differences need to be understood carefully. In feeble-minded or mad persons, aberrations from the average pattern of responses and actions are the result of their mental incapacity to adhere to the ordinary ways of the world. Through inherent psychic weakness, their directive effort has come to an impasse or has fizzled out. The cases of breakdown of the mind in ordinary madness are often due to aimlessness in life, as they are due to insufficiency or to an inadequacy of the available willpower or mental strength. There are usually many other contributory factors in such cases. Persons who find shelter in mental hospitals are generally those who have been subjected to unusual mental shock or strain. They lose their balance of mind due to either to insufficient mental development or to the operation of physiological or psychic forces of disruption. Though these physiological or psychological forces that have caused mental disruptions are irresistible, they are of the ordinary kind. In ordinary madness, the collapse of the normal functioning of the mind has come about by unmanageable conflicts or disintegrating factors, and the best that can be hoped for by removing causes of disturbance is the restoration of the previous state of normality of the mind. But the case of Musk is almost altogether different in origin as well as in potentiality. There is no doubt that Musk often exhibit an incapacity to deal with the ordinary situations of life, and they are, in this respect, comparable to those who are deranged in mind. But the departure of Musk from normal behavior and responses is not due to lack of sufficient mental development, nor is due to any chaotic force of disruption. It is due to a suspension of interest in the ordinary pursuits of life and to an absorption in the spiritual realities encountered on the path towards true realization. Like cases of ordinary mental derangement, the cases of many Musts may show signs of mental conflict when considered from the purely theoretical point of view. However, from the point of view of their intrinsic nature, the two mental conflicts are poles apart. Ordinary mental derangement is due to an acute and insoluble conflict between incompatible sanskaric inclinations in connection with the bird. But the unusual psychic state of the divine madness of Masts are due to the dispersion of the sanskaric inclination by the powerful urge to realize the God state. I think I will read this once again. The ordinary mental derangement is due to an acute and insoluble conflict between incompatible sanskaric inclinations in connection with the world. But the unusual psychic states of the divine madness of Masts are due to the dispersion of sanskaric inclinations by the powerful urge to realize the God state. In the divine madness of Masts, the advancing urge to realize the highest brings about a complete shattering of the mental structure and of all its normal tendencies and capacities. This condition of the mind ultimately leads to a total inhibition of the mind, which is the gateway to the Unmani state. Okay. This condition of the mind ultimately leads to a total inhibition of mind, which is the gateway to the Unmani state. The successful termination of the steady impulsion to truth initiates the Masts into supramental state of integral understanding and direct realization of the Supreme Self. But this divine drive for the truth in its process entails far-reaching ravages in the psychic field. It involves a complete breakup and a reconstitution of the mental structure and for existing and of existing tendencies. There is no wonder that the inevitable intermediate mental state are, in their expression, found to be as much removed from average state as are the abnormal states of mad persons. Confusion between the abnormal and the supernormal states of consciousness arises due to mixing up two ways of interpreting and measuring madness and its degrees. According to one way of interpretation, madness is a deviation from the average mode of consciousness and behavior, and its degree is to be measured by the amount of its departure from the average pattern. But according to another way of interpretation, madness is the incapacity of consciousness to understand or express truth, and its degree is to be measured by the extent to which it deviates from truth. If these two distinct standards are mixed up with each other and applied simultaneously, they inevitably lead to a confusion between the abnormal mad states and the supernormal Masts states. I think this paragraph is quite profound. I will read it once again. Confusion between the abnormal and supernormal states of consciousness arises due to mixing up two ways of interpreting and measuring madness in its degrees. According to one way of interpretation, madness is a deviation from the average mode of consciousness and behavior, and its degree is to be measured by the amount of its departure from the average pattern. But according to another way of interpretation, madness is the incapacity of consciousness to understand or express truth, and its degree is to be measured by the extent to which it deviates from truth. If these two distinct standards are mixed up with each other and applied simultaneously, they inevitably lead to a confusion between the abnormal mad states and the supernormal must states.
Jai Baba, Mamaji, I just taking the liberty to ask a
Sure.
question.
Yes.
See, it's very difficult to differentiate, but see,
Yes.
Meher Baba, of course, he is the highest of the high. But for common man, this paragraph can lead some hints, but it's still very difficult to discern or to differentiate between who is, in a supernormal must state or abnormal mad state.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
any input from
Because
others, welcome. But to my mind, this is really intriguing.
yes. Yes. This is
Yeah.
in one part because we have our own set pattern of decision. So we judge on our say assumptions. So because of that, this problem will arise. So
Correct.
to identify a must or a mad, we don't have this distinction. We feel everybody who is deviating from the average way of say association with others, we feel they are all mad or they are some way psychologically disturbed or things like that. But
Yeah.
just go ahead.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Actually, Ashok ji and Mama ji, one thing is, first of all, most people do not know there's a difference between a mad and a must. So number one is that. Other thing is, there are hints which Baba has given, or I have read in some books given by Baba or written by others. There are some hints which are a differentiator, but that you can do only if you know there is also a category called must. Like they may be living in very dirty places, but they will not be smelling bad. You know, they don't take bath for years and all that, but they don't fall sick. So there are few hints are available, but they are only a tool after you have done the expertise of understanding the difference between must and because ordinary people, if you explain this, they will not be able to understand.
Yes.
So,
fair
but
point.
yes,
Ashish,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
correct. So, is that's all I think. Yeah, yeah, Baba.
Yeah, I think like Sanjay ji said, there are rules or at least filters that Baba has defined to identify must, right? So when the Mandali used to go out must hunting, they were told to apply those rules to identify and differentiate between those that are mad and those that are actually must. I'm sure that will pan out as we
Correct,
read the
Correct.
rest of the
Correct.
book.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and within the mandali also there were few who are experts in doing it.
Better at that, exactly.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have
Yes,
come
yes, yeah,
across
better
that.
at doing.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
correct,
yeah,
correct,
Baba.
correct.
So I have a general question. We had Mirabai, who was really devoted to Krishna Bhakti. Would she fall under the category of must?
No,
Okay.
yeah, I think the characteristics of like you said, the world, if without knowing must, should think of that person as mad. The world does not think like that of Mira.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
though she fulfills the criteria potentially of being in divine love and constantly thinking of God, Krishna in this case, she does not qualify on the account of doing things that make her, uh, make her to be perceived like mad or somebody who's lost control of her senses,
Okay.
right? So I think that's how I would read it.
Good. Thank you. Thank
Yes,
All right.
these examples of Meera say she had a life in the say existing environment, and she was able to adjust to that also, and have this feeling towards the uh, Krishna Bhakti. That is the she was not awkwardly behaving or
Correct.
behaving in a different way from the existing pattern of the society. So that's why she may not qualify to be called as a must, I think.
Agreed.
Proper.
Agreed. It was just a question in my mind, I say that.
Yes, yes, yes.
No, good question because it helps us clarify and define this better. Just so that we don't miss it, I think the portions that we marked out and Mamaji read multiple times as well are the portions that dramatically and clearly define, in a spiritual sense, in a Baba vocabulary, of who is mad and who
Yes.
is not. I mean, who is not mad, right? So, clinical definitions or medical definitions may be different for depressive disorders, mental illness, and so on. But this is so beautifully put that it's only mental patterns, and then also the aspect of the filter of truth,
Yes.
closeness to the truth, right? So, amazing definitions. So, Ashish had unmuted a couple of times. Maybe he wants to say something.
No, not much, but I just wanted to say, like, one of the statement was maybe because of the life disturbances. If the person goes mad, he's definitely mad. But like some people who born with the some autism or those kind of stuff, right? So maybe we don't know because we don't know like their sanskaras or whatever they, because they are not, might be they are not earning that that good or bad sanskara, right? Who is the born with autism? So maybe they may have some kind of must features, not all, but might be. That's what actually I was trying to say, but don't know.
Good question, but something that you told is opening another question in my head. Why do you think that sanskaras won't be added to those people that are
because because as I read somewhere, like every person does balances the sanskar, right? Bad and good sanskaras.
correct?
So
Correct.
whenever he has some intentions, bad intentions, it's a bad sanskara. He has a very good intention. Oh, I'm giving some, doing something good. It's a good intention. But when the person is born with the autism
Hmm.
and he does something, right? I don't think he's binding some sanskaras because he don't have any kind of
Good
intentions,
point. Good
right?
point. Because
Very, very,
it
very
is
relevant point you
interesting.
have brought
Yeah.
out here. From my medical background, what I can say is, a person who is suffering from autism, internally his mind or his emotions, his feelings, he is unable to express in the ordinary sense to the exacting world as such. So things will go on inside him, but the output that he brings out may be awkward looking or awkward in effect to the society as such. So that is the difference there. So because they are not doing any intentional action to harm anyone or do something awkward to others, maybe to that extent they may not attract this sanskaric binding, or actually they may be slightly unwinding their sanskaras. That is my way of looking at it. Jai Baba.
So can we say that there is absence of free will
Huh.
and there is only exhaustion of sanskaras, but no addition to sanskaras?
No, it may not be
Potentially.
100% true. It may be partly this thing. So because what goes on in their mind, we don't know. The action
Correct.
that they put out may be awkward, but their intention may be to do something. So that intention is driven by some samskaric background. So to that extent, either they add bad or good effects. But major effect, as we see, may not be the accruing sanskaric load for them.
Sanskaras. Fair enough. Good point. Uh, small clarification. Are you using autism specifically, or are you using any mental imbalance or any category of not
Any mental imbalance
broadly? Okay, fair
broadly.
enough. Yeah, I think it applies to everything. That's why I was clarifying. Okay, perfect. You're okay to finish off the forward, Mama? I think I don't know how many pages. Okay, so continue, please.
When the must states are measured by the standard of average pattern of responses and actions, they will inevitably be interpreted as having an even greater degree of madness than ordinary madness. But if we change the standard, they will be interpreted differently. when the must states are measured by the standard of realization and expression of truth, they will inevitably be interpreted as having increasing degrees of sanity. When viewed in the light of truth, the average pattern of responses and behavior, which is the most common standard for measuring degree of madness, would itself appear as a veritable form of madness, and ordinary forms of madness, which have failed to reach even the average pattern, would present themselves as deeper levels of madness. I'm getting confused. I will read it once again. When the must states are measured by standards of average pattern of responses and actions, they will inevitably be interpreted as having an even greater degree of madness than ordinary madness. It may look beyond the normal madness itself. Okay. But if we change the standard, they will be interpreted differently. When the must states are measured by standards of realization and expression of truth, they will inevitably be interpreted as having increasing degrees of sanity, not insanity, but sanity. When viewed in the light of truth, the average pattern of responses and behavior, which is the most common standard for measuring degrees of madness, would itself appear as a veritable form of madness, and ordinary forms of madness, which have failed to reach even the average pattern, would present themselves at deeper levels of madness. So, what is meant here, as I understand, is madness is more madness, and must levels are less madness, because they are more sane in the light of the standards of realization and expression of truth. However, all these different phases of unfolding human consciousness are better understood when they are viewed in their continuity and in their relation to ultimate objective of realizing and expressing the truth. When viewed in this way, ordinary madness is seen to be most dim reflection of truth, and the average mode of consciousness and the must states are both seen to be increasing degrees of sanity and approximation to the truth that becomes completely manifest in its unqualified reality and fullness only when the domain of mind is crossed. Domain of mind is crossed. Okay. Yes, this paragraph also explains what he had meant earlier. Okay.
Yeah, I think the test or the big difference between clinical madness and God mad is obviously on how you view them with reference to the truth, right?
True.
So that's where I think the difference becomes clearer. And if you see it in that lens, obviously their actions and behavior will be closer to sanity than insanity.
Yes. This
Yeah.
also stresses the point that those who are not tuned to Baba's messages or literature, as we have at least made an attempt to know to
Till
an
now, yeah.
extent, they will not be able to understand these things.
Understand. Correct. 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 No, even to me, right? It was in the early days. This was the most odd thing for me, right? So personally, when you understand this, this was like, hey, I don't get this. So
Yes, yes.
I'm really looking forward to reading this book.
Those
Yeah.
aspirants who get launched on the must line find themselves propelled by an irresistible impulsion in the form of yearning to realize God as the divine beloved. The psychic journey of Masts is a mysterious flight from darkness to light, from ignorance to knowledge, from a sense of isolation and frustration to the experience of fulfillment through a complete merging in the divine beloved. Even in the initial stages, those who are on the path of must get intoxicated by glimpses of God as the beloved. As the must advances on the inner planes, he gets more and more God intoxicated, and his yearning to be united with the divine beloved becomes so acute and irresistible that it gradually takes him beyond the domain of the mind. During the process of transcending the mind, the mental makeup of the must is subjected to so much disturbance and upheaval that he is unable to use his mind in the ordinary way. To all appearances, he is like a madman. The way in which he sits, talks, or eats, and his general demeanor, and so far, yeah, are so far removed from what is most current in the world that common people very often take him to be insane. The must invites upon himself a tumultuous overturning of the ingredients of his ego mind. These far reaching and wide-spreading psychic disturbances upset all his normal expressions, and those who have no direct insight into the working of his mind may mistake him for one who is stark mad. Compared with the ordinary man of the world, the must may seem to have less balance of mind, but it is important to remember that the average man himself has not really any balance of mind. The average man of the world has only an appearance of balance because he can often effect a provisional adjustment between the warring elements in his mind. The adjustment of conflicting tendencies that he succeeds in achieving for some time is based upon a working compromise between them. This working compromise enables the average man to bring his outward behavior into conformity with the established conventions of society. And because he fits into the average pattern of the responses and reactions, he gives the appearance of balance.
This last paragraph is exactly what was running in my head for the last 10-15 minutes, saying everybody is actually mad.
Yes,
The degree matters. That's it, right? So,
yes,
and like Baba says, uh, in our eagerness to conform, to be the same as the rest of society, we do actions, and only that makes us appear sane. But then, if left to ourselves, if we do what we want to do, I think each one can be technically classified as mad, right? The degree degree differs.
mad or must.
Mad or must, yes. I mean, we conform to the pattern, then you're not mad. You're moving away, yes. Baba and his words are unbelievable. It thinks everything. Yeah.
The working balance of compromise that the average man is able to strike between the conflicting sanskaric inclinations of his psyche is dictated by the exigencies of the situation. It is not determined by a careful evaluation of conflicting tendencies. The result is that the balance is only temporary and is accompanied by a sense of partial frustration. The average mind is like a house that is divided against itself and has in it a constant sense of insecurity and unsteadiness. The must is seeking a higher and a more lasting balance of mind that would be securely based upon true values. He has taken in his own hands the task of intelligent psychic readjustment and new experimentation. This task is very different from the theoretical manipulation of ideas. It involves the courage to face oneself with unfailing honesty of purpose. It involves also the necessary intense ardor of bringing about the practical overhauling of the contents of the mind. The spiritual yearning for lasting truth brings about in us a complete unsettlement of the working balance of compromise, and that is characteristic of the average man of the world. Balance of compromise, that is the characteristic of an average man of the world.
So,
In order, yes, yes.
So I'm coming to one term. I don't know whether it's relevant. Uh, PWSM, or provisional working spiritual mind.
Oh, provisional working worldly mind and provisionally working spiritual mind.
I think that could be just some way of, understanding or keeping.
Yes. In order that the mind may arrive at a true balance of understanding, any previous provisional balance of compromise has provisional balance of compromise has been considerably disturbed. Has be, I don't know whether it is a grammatical problem here. Okay. Any previous provisional balance of compromise has to be considerably disturbed.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. This is what happens in the life of us. A new factor has appeared in their consciousness. It is an agonizing love for God as the divine beloved. The unprecedented intensity of this love throws into the background all the considerations that were previously the guiding factors. Joy in the divine beloved is now the overwhelming factor of divine dynamic and directive value, and any other forces recede into the background and cease to be effective. The role played by this fresh love in helping the must to arrive at a new balance of understanding is unique, but the attainment is effected gradually and in stages, and the intervening phase is throughout characterized by unbalanced consciousness of diverse types. Musts are God-intoxicated souls. The glimpses of divinity that they get are accompanied by a joy that breaks through any type of sordid composure. Okay. One state of unbalanced exaltation is replaced by another state of unbalanced exaltation. The divine intoxication of the elixir of the liberating love of God admits of different degrees. The must, with a feeling of uncontrollable happiness, flies through the uncharted plains which open themselves to him until finally he is drowned in the unlimited bliss of an ultimate merging in the divine beloved. Only in the end is his lost balance finally re-established, for not until all obstructive factors in the journey are successfully overcome can the lost balance of consciousness be restored. In spite of the fact that many must lose their balance while traversing the path of the inner life, they are often capable of rendering effective service to other aspirants less advanced than themselves. Musts are completely oblivious of the worldly considerations and values, but they are very sensitive to the spiritual needs of those who come in touch with them. Musts, because they are consciously stationed on the higher planes, can give to aspirants such that the type of occult help that is necessary. Just that type of occult help necessary.
So, Mamaji, one question, Jay Baba.
Yes.
Which planes are they referring to? 5, 6, 7, or?
I don't know. It can be any of these planes, because those who are in one step ahead can always help those who are just below them. That is my perception. If there is any difference, I am not sure on that.
I agree with Mamaji's response. It's a broader usage of the term. I think Majzub is post-sixth plane, right?
Yes,
Must can be in any plane,
yes.
right? So let's keep that in mind. I think that's how it is. But anyway, the book will unravel all of that.
Fair point.
So hold your horses.
Okay. I think Mazub may not be able to help anyone.
Correct, exactly, because he is not of the world.
Okay. Yes. Some must get stuck on the inner planes. They are overpowered by the inflow of grace and love and get into a state of divine stupor. They are entirely absorbed in the beatific vision. Some must are completely stupefied by the psychic somersault precipitated by an entry into a new plane of consciousness and cannot find their bearings in the midst of their new environment, new duties, and new powers. Some must find their insurgent powers uncontrollable and are forced by new and unsurmountable temptations. They can make no further advancement through their own unaided efforts and have to avoid the possibility of a precipitous fall through the indiscriminate use of occult powers. In short, in spite of having attained a higher spiritual status, many Masts on the inner planes need real guidance and help from a perfect master. The master has a direct and unerring insight into the exact working of the minds of Masts. He knows the true genesis and the nature of unusual mental state in which the Mast has landed himself. He is therefore in a position to understand the conditions of Masts in terms of their spiritual needs, and he can help them further towards the realization of the goal that they are struggling to achieve in their own way. The master knows all the stages of the journey with its traps, dangers, and opportunities for speedy advancement. He gives Masts effective guidance and a spiritual push, and he facilitates their onward march on the path so that they become more and more fit as vehicles for the expression of divine will. They become more efficient agents for the promotion of God's plan on earth. I think somebody else can take over from here. Hello?
Any volunteer? Yeah, go ahead, Ashish.
Okay. So before that, like as you mentioned, so Must
Sure.
can help to other people also, right? To
Yes,
grow
yes.
in the spiritual world. So
Yes.
one of the book I was reading, like Growing Up with God of the Sheila Kalchuri. So she
Correct.
mentioned like Muhammad Mast, right? Muhammad Mast. So
Correct.
Muhammad Mast used to ask her to come to him, and he used to create some border and ask her to stay into that area only for a couple of hours. So when she asked to Baba like why he's always asking me to do something like that, then I think Baba said to her, he's working on you. That's why. That means like Must can help you for the your spiritual growth.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
I don't think we are expected to approach musts, though they have capability, but
Yeah.
it is only their whim. If they may help, they may. They are not supposed to. Kind of, they are not like Sadgurus are by design or by the role that is given to them are expected to help people. No? Material and spiritual benefits, and avatar gives only the spiritual benefits, as we say. But musts are on the way, so it's not a rule. That's what I think.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Important and fair point in the sense that we should not be looking for help from us. And
Yes.
when I say we, I am saying that in our with the confidence that we are right now with the avatar, right, with the highest of the high. So in that sense, yes, totally agree. But good point that you
And
mentioned from the book.
one more thing I read, like Must do always some different activity, like they eat the fire or they take the marjorana. The reason was to make their body conscious, or to make their body like stable with the soul. That's why they do this kind of activity, some
Correct,
abnormal
correct.
activity kind of thing.
Smoke. They smoke,
Yeah.
tea, take too much tea. Yeah, all that. Yeah.
So when must receive the sorry.
Somebody's mic. Oh, hi. Hi, Nomita. You should just mute your mic, I think. Yeah, go ahead. You're saying something, Ashish. Finish what you're saying.
When must receive, I'm just reading,
Mm-hmm.
started reading.
Sure. Oh,
when
okay.
must
Go
receive
ahead. Jai Baba.
when must receive the right sort of help from a perfect master, they emerge into a supranormal state of new integration and harmony. Must experience greater awakening, greater poise, greater bliss, and a closer contact with the highest truth. In ordinary madness, the person can, through suitable treatment and healing, only return to the normality of the ordinary functioning of consciousness. But if the divine madness of the must is the recipient of the directive help of the master, it becomes a springboard for the emergence of a more stable and more dynamic equilibrium of consciousness. The must states have in them an immense potential for contacting and releasing divinity with an ever increasing uh, throughness and fullness, but they need to delicately handled by one who has attained spiritual perfection. The master can, because of his perfect love and universality of appeal, immediately establish an understanding with all types of musts. In his capacity as the divine beloved and as the divine lover, he enters into the lives of must as a liberator of fresh energies and a giver of a and as a giver of a higher and healthier tone of life. He achieves this result by slowly and patiently undoing the sanskaric complexities and tangles accumulated in the ego mind of must. Through such consummate working and oh, sorry, through such consummate working, the master establishes in must a poise between the head and the heart, activates new and more powerful central centers of control, and releases lock-up funds of spiritual energy. The master initiates must into a greater clarity and lucidity of consciousness, into a deeper ecstasy, ecstasy, a purer and more expansive love, and into a truer and stronger creativity of response. When the master applies himself to his work in connection with the must states, he finds himself confronted with some problems and are peculiar to them. A must is very often delicately sensitive to the fralights of those whom he contacts. He is therefore more exposed to environmental provocation than the average man, who has not developed such super sensibility. The very love that a must has for others often impels him to severity of actions, and in the course of time, he is likely to get enmeshed in the self-created habits of severe responses. This explains the states of must who seem to be cruel to others. The moral indignation and apparent cruelty ultimately do confer spiritual benefit upon those towards whom they are directed. But the must himself stands in need of a greater and fuller acquiescence in the divine will of wider and an outgoing love, of a fuller identification with unevolved souls, and of a deeper understanding and more complete control over the mind. All this the master achieves for the must by taking him beyond the limitation of his own forging. One of the most difficult
Yeah,
thing.
actually, yes. 1 minute. Yeah, I think it is very nicely explained here that the musts are their behaviors are random or sometimes severe. They even beat up people, or they ask people to, leave them alone, call them names, gali dena, se kehte hain hum log. So all that is there with the must. So many people who do not know their status just get away from them. The people who approach them for materialistic benefits. The people who know their status and what they are, they in spite of all this, they stay close. They try to serve the musts by if he is a smoker, they offer them bidis. Like Muhammad Must will take soaps from people. Other than that, he will not accept anything. So these are very kind of peculiar behaviors of musts. Yeah, yeah, Baba.
And I think one time some mandalis were bringing one must, and he was not keeping the clothes on his body, and they were bringing him in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
I
yeah.
think in the train, and I think it was
Yes,
a
yes.
story of Satar or Mahabaleshwar somewhere. As soon as they just
Yeah.
came out of the train, that must was running like anything. He directly went to the Baba's place. Means, we don't know how he knows
Yeah,
the route and all. He
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
yeah.
running and go to Baba.
Yes, yes. Yeah, Baba.
One of the most difficult things for a must is to come out of the self-sufficiency of his state. He may be so immersed in bliss that he may experience no need within himself to get linked with anyone. He may have no wants and need have none. Just as a must becomes completely indifferent to his own body or to physical condition of his life. He can also become indifferent to the physical or spiritual conditions of others. When a must gets walled in by his own self-sufficiency and desirelessness, only the master can draw him out of the isolation of his choice by awakening within him an expensive love that breaks through all limitations and prepares him for shouldering the important responsibility of rendering true service to others who are in the need of spiritual help. Because of his being stationed on the inner planes, which are free
Ashish, you
from.
may read a bit slower. So sometimes just a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That
sure,
would
sure, sure.
that would be helpful. Yeah. It was an expansive love. I think it is not expensive, expansive. Widely
Expansive.
known. Yeah, yeah. Jai Baba.
Yeah, because of his being stationed on the inner planes, which are free from the limitations and handicaps of the gross world, a must can be and often is in contact with far greater number of souls than is possible for an ordinary person. Must mind is a nucleus of conscious formations with innumerable and far-reaching links. A must can therefore be a more effective agent for spiritual work than the most able person of the gross world. The must mind is also often used directly by the master as a medium for sending his spiritual help to different parts of the world. Very often, when the master is helping a must, he is also helping the world through him at that very time. When a must thus surrenders his mind for the work of the master, he is in fact getting closer to the master as a truth. He is being perfected far more rapidly than would have been the case if he had avoided such surrender. In the thousand ways he masters, in the thousand ways the master makes an irresistible appeal to the inmost being of the musts, being of musts, and awakens in them the undying spring of creative action. Those who are derailed from the normal line of life are thus restored to unimpeachable sanity and to wholeness of outlook. The master makes them spiritually perfect in his own image.
Jai Baba.
Okay.
So that's the end of the foreword, right? So then in the first chapter, as outlined in the preface, is also about definition of must, right? So the first one is written by, I mean, the foreword is written by Baba, but then if I remember correctly, the first chapter also focuses on definition of the must. Uh, so let's continue with that. Any other volunteers to read? Numita vanished. I thought I'll make her read.
She wanted to say something, I think, But
Yeah. No, we'll get her back. Sunil, are you both in Delhi?
I think they both are in
Yeah.
Delhi
Yeah.
because she came in the same
Frame
digital
as.
out.
Oh, okay. I didn't observe. Okay.
Yes.
Um, um, Sanjay, can you read for a bit? I think we are at least
I just
10.
need half a minute. Half a minute. I'm
Sure.
something. Yeah. Yeah, Baba. Maybe till that you can discuss something. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the forward regarding the MERS, what we read till now, my
Mhm.
perception of MERS was almost as mad people initially. And then, as we came near Baba, we came to know that there is a distinction between a madness, worldly madness, and the divine madness, which is the MERS state. So, while reading this, I was given the inkling that musts are capable of, say, giving spiritual push to many people, maybe directly or indirectly, but it's a difficult thing to approach and get anything from them because their ways and means are so awkward from the point of view of the societal practices.
Normalcy.
It is very difficult. So that is one thing.
Right.
The other thing
Yeah.
is the master controls the mass or mellows them and then puts them back in the path for spirituality properly. So that is the great work of what Baba has done, going hunting for musts in this land and then trying to help them out in the spiritual path. The other point is that Master uses these musts for the benefit of the whole world. Through them, he gets so much of work done. So I was very much confused. What type of work? What is that actual transpiration which happens through them or through the agents that Baba uses? So gradually, small inklings are coming how this work might have or is still going on in this world. So these are some of the things which came out of this reading. Thanks, Baba.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for
Yeah,
that
Baba.
beautiful summary. I think that covers what we have learned in a better fashion. I think also the
Yes.
other thing is perfect masters use them in a big way. And just to comment and add to what you said, there is a lot of coverage for what Baba did with the must during World War II. So it looks like there is a direct link between his universal work and the role of these individual musts. We may find out more about that in this book, but then there are multiple
Yes.
accounts of how he was actually managing the process of the war, managing in quotes, using these musts symbolically representing various powers and
Yes.
power centers in the war. That I have come across multiple times in
Yeah.
yeah
Correct. Like Chatti Baba was, I think, in charge of the
France.
France. France. Yes.
France, yeah,
When
it was
France was being impounded during the World
Hmm,
War, he was in a
correct,
very bad state.
correct. And what Chatti Baba used to experience was what France was experiencing almost in a
Correct.
parallel
Correct. Correct.
way, and
Correct.
that's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the correlation that was there. Yeah. Okay. So how much time do we have?
We have 6 minutes.
Okay,
And
so we'll wrap
another,
up here.
yes,
We'll wrap up here and
another
continue
point which
discussing.
comes out is with this large canvas of mass and different souls and the work done through those souls by one single master brings us to the core of all this, how God works, how Baba works, and he is still working through different souls for the benefit of the whole, uh, say, the world, all the souls, even in the cosmos and all that. So that becomes a larger canvas for us to understand the greatness of the beloved. Jai Baba.
No doubt. And I think I have not come across any other spiritual master or discipline that gives importance or even alludes to must called by whatever name, this kind of people as being important in the spiritual world, right? I have not come across, except
It
I
is
think I
Rama's
might have
journey. Yeah. The
in
Rama's
Rama's
journey in
journey.
the jungles. Yeah, I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
they were saints, but we don't know. I mean, now we know they were
Could be
saints
must.
and people on the path, but maybe he met a lot of musks on the way. We don't know.
So we don't know. We don't
He
know. I mean,
he
it
has that period, 14 years of exile.
correct, but nobody actually calls them out
Correct.
specifically as
Yes,
either
yes,
mad or God intoxicated or so on and so forth.
yes,
Except
yes,
that
yes.
I found one reference in Sri M's book where he talks about, he doesn't use the word must, but I think he uses the word God intoxicated or mad like people in his autobiography. And he says they are advanced spiritually. So very few people in the spiritual world give credence or give importance to this. So
Mhm.
that I think is the big contribution that Baba has done, and this will be a body and area of research for the years to come, I'm sure. Right, more and more people will do that, and obviously that brings us to the next thing as to do we know where are the musts now? Do we is there anybody looking out for these musts? In the Baba world, are they being uh, classified, identified, taken care of in whatever way? Obviously, they're taken care of by the perfect masters as we speak, right? Whatever is spiritually required, that's getting done. But I'm saying for us as Baba lovers, is that happening? We don't know, right? So, and I also find it very intriguing that Baba said that the whole idea of musts are relevant only to the subcontinent, right? That's again something very intriguing. So it gives you the importance for this land, like avatars always come with a link to the subcontinent, he says. In the same way, musts are always found here. So be proud that we belong to or hail from India.
Yes.
Any other
In this
closing
life.
comments?
Yeah, Karthik.
Yes, in this life. Thank you, Sanjay.
We'll also be born in Africa and America and in Japan, maybe.
Yes, yes, yes,
Later
yes,
in
yes,
Japan.
yes, 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 yes. Ashok, you're saying something.
Yeah, it's the spiritual east and the material west.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But within the spiritual East, I think specifically India gets a pride of place.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
Spiritual headquarters of the globe.
absolutely.
So we should feel happy that we are. I mean, at least we have an opportunity to research, to discover, and to learn.
Hmm.
And especially, I
Okay,
feel
so
great that I'm in Pune.
good.
Correct,
So
correct.
find a
So
few
we
musts
should
by
be in a
next
hurry.
Sunday.
We should be in a hurry because in next life we could be in Africa. We don't know.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in Timbuktu.
So,
So this is a
so
golden
remember,
opportunity.
so
Yeah.
the Baba has given us a practical suggestion that remember me once every day. I mean, without fail, with all your heart, and also in your dying moments. And that's the the fast track to
Yeah.
reaching him.
Yeah. Bare minimum thing to do.
Yeah, at least you should remember him with all your heart and soul. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So I'll just stop recording for a bit and